Let's talk about the straightaway. This is one of the original tools. We've been using the straightaway in our fence business since the late 90s, possibly. We've made a lot of changes to it over the years. Some people call this a Swiss Army knife of tools for the fence industry. There's a lot of things that this tool can do for you. It's a very, very valuable tool. Robust, very strong as well. But let's talk about it. So primarily this tool was built for running fence pickets and keeping the top of the pickets all even on your fence section. So this would sit up on top of your fence. You would have it sitting on the first picket there, and now hang on a buddy picket on the opposite side. Now that we have these buddy pickets, and that would hold up the other side on the top rail of the fence. And that allows you to run the pickets nice and even across the top. That's the primary focus for the straightaway. We have the 1.0 does a single layer of pickets. And then we have the 2.0, which will allow you to do board on board. So you have a double layer of pickets in there. The first row, and then you can run the second row because this channel is deeper. That's really the only difference between the 1.0 and the 2.0 is that you can run the board on board. Other than that, everything else is the same. On the 1.0 and the 2.0, there's these notches in here. These notches that are cut in here, they're used for equal spacing your pickets. The deep notch is for board on board or spacing. So you have 3.5 inch space on a 5.5 inch picket. That's the deep notch. So in other words, you put that notch on the right side of the first picket, your next picket will be on the right side, that picket will be on the right side, so on and so forth to get to the end. Then you move the jig down, slap it on the right side of the first picket, and repeat. And you'll end up with perfect spacing all the way down the line of the fence. The small notch that you see in here, that is for a 2-inch space. So a 5.5 inch picket with a 2-inch space, like a semi-privacy type fence. Again, put that notch on the right or the left side of the picket. As long as you do the same way every single time, you end up with a consistent space all the way down the line of the fence. There is a shadow boxing tool in here to get you pretty close. You'll set your shadow box spacing tool or set the jig up on top. You have a picket on either side of the section. You find out which color is closest to the last picket at the end. Once you figure out which color is closest, then you move this color here to that same side of the picket. So you make a slight adjustment, and then you run the greens, the reds, the yellows, the blue on the same side of the picket all the way through, and it'll get you pretty close to the end. So not as accurate as a shadowlizer, but if you don't have a shadowlizer handy, that'll give you pretty consistent spacing for your shadow box pickets on that front side. And on the back side of the shadow box fence, just match the openings. So this tool also does your gate spacing and your no dig gate spacing and your dig and set full section spacing. So what does that mean? Well, if you have a 5x5 vinyl post that you have set in concrete, there's a notch right there. So once you have the first one set, you put it to the first notch. That post is set. Now to set the next post, I would just take and put it in the hole against the notch. That's for a 3-foot gate opening, 4-foot gate opening, 5-foot gate opening, 6-foot gate opening, and it's noted right on there what those openings are on that sticker. We'll tell you which one those are. Now, if you're going to do dig and set gate opening, driven gate openings for like King Plus and vinyl with King nuts, this is where you get the one post already drove, sits in there. The next post, this is for your no dig 3-foot gate opening, 4-foot gate opening, 5-foot and 6-foot opening. Those give you the proper opening for the post, so you end up with a net opening of 3-foot, 4-foot, 5-foot, 6-foot. It's not 3 foot between these, but by the time you add both of those posts, whether it be King Plus or vinyl, you end up with a net 3, 4, 5, or 6-foot opening. So those are what those gaps are for. If you're going to do full section spacing, you've got your first post set for vinyl, driven, full sections, 8-foot on centers. That notch goes in the first post you drove. That tells you the next post, the next one you're going to drive, is going to be in this notch. That's going to give you 8-foot on centers by doing that. So you keep on moving down the line, 8-foot on centers. If you wanted to set 8-foot on centers with a 5x5 dig and set, you go in that notch right there, and you end up being right down here at the end of this. It's going to give you 8-foot on centers. Okay. With the 2.0 version, there is a It's a chain link nut and bolt. That's all this is. So if you lose it, you should have it on your truck. But the reason for that is when you run that first set of pickets, the back row, we need to have a spacer here to keep this from rotating back and forth. So all that is doing is making contact with the picket, your end picket, your last picket, to prevent this thing from rotating back and forth. Or your first picket, rather. Prevent it from moving back and forth. All right. There is a built-in tape measure in there. If you need to use it for spacing something specific, like maybe a custom opening, that might come in handy. But primarily, you've got your gate spaces, your full section, running your pickets, board on board, semi-privacy fence, and shadow box spacing fence. And these, you can run these with a you can make a cheater picket out of wood. If you don't have a buddy picket, if you buy a buddy picket, this is going to hang on your top rail. This has a magnet in it, so to prevent that straightaway from sliding on the fence line for you, and give you the set reveal that you need. So that is the straightaway 2.0 and the straightaway 1.0.